All right, so we've come to that point in the season now where the NFL narrative conversations begin to take shape. And I've told you guys over and over that I am a firm believer in the NFL narrative. Now, we've seen a lot of things. You have to argue whether or not you think the NFL is rigged. We've had this conversation before. I don't think it's rigged per se. And every year we're going to talk about this, but there are storylines. You have to remember the NFL is an entertainment business. It is very similar to the WWE. When it comes to the WWE, wrestling, there are storylines. The wrestling is real. The injuries are real. The storylines are manufactured. And that's the same thing that is going on in the NFL. Now, you can push back if you want to. That's fine. We're going to have these conversations. Why do I still watch? Why do I invest? Because why do you go to see SummerSlam? It's the same reason. Okay? Now, we have, for a while, I've been so consumed with the offseason. I've been so consumed with the season. Every so often, you're reminded of the narrative in the NFL, and it hits you like a ton of bricks. When we go back to 2015, the Aaron Rodgers Hail Mary, the constant things that we have seen happen to the Detroit Lions, and it continues. So let me explain to you what I mean by NFL narrative, and you can tell me in the comments below if you think the NFL is rigged or not. Now, when I think about rigged, I think about that the winners are predetermined and that is what's happening in the NFL. I don't believe that that's the case. I've never believed that the winners are predetermined. I do believe that there are storylines and that to keep those storylines in play, that they have to get assistance from the rest. That's just, I will always believe that there will be nothing. Once you see it, it's almost like when your eyes become open. You see things for so long, you start to understand it and you start to see it clear as day. Now, the NFL has done a miserable job since Roger Goodell it's gotten worse, but they've done a miserable job covering it up. It's almost like he doesn't care. The NFL is a, $15 billion plus business per year. He does not care whether or not it's obvious or not. He doesn't care because he still makes money. He doesn't lose money. The NFL is growing year after year. He doesn't care. So we've determined this, and we've had several conversations, and a lot of y'all in the comment section was, oh, no. And I'm like, it's right in front of your face, all right? But I still go to these games. I still invest my money. I just want my team. I want to know what it feels like to be on the mountaintop. All right, so the narrative has been taking shape. Now, remember, guys, for all the criticism I get in the comment section, I've been right about a lot of this stuff. The fact that Matthew Stafford was traded right after that, he won the Super Bowl. And there was some questionable calls in that run up to the Super Bowl. Drop interceptions, missed calls, questionable calls, things to make Matthew Stafford win the Super Bowl. And I think part of that narrative was to tear Detroit down to the studs. I believe that I'm even inclined to believe that Matt Patricia was a plant. That's where I'm at, all right? So if this is not your type of video, I understand that. But Matt Patricia was used to tear this team down to the studs so that we can have the resurgence that we've had under Dan Campbell, which is why I understand that why you guys glaze Brad Holmes so much, because it's just amazing. He gets way more glaze than Dan Campbell, who actually leads the team and coaches them every week. But the fact that I understand why y'all glaze him so much because of how we came from the dirt to the top of the mountaintop, almost, right? Now, check this out. The Detroit Lions they have now the most expensive tickets in the NFL. The most expensive tickets in the NFL for a team that hasn't won anything, right? So let's talk about the narrative. We talked about Matthew Stafford. I told you, and it's so great to have people come back in the comment section and say, hey, Derek, you were right, man. You know what I'm saying? That the narrative, I told you about Stafford. I told you about the Stafford Goff narrative. You guys don't want to hear about it, but it is always the thing. As long as Matthew Stafford is a Ram and Jared Goff is a Lion, there will always be a narrative. 100%. So right now, Jared Goff is actually 2-1 against Matthew Stafford. It's not a coincidence, ladies and gentlemen. Let me take you back. Now, this all has a point. It all has a point. As you can see from the banner below, the narrative is beginning to take shape. The Rams have been, outside of that down year, even when they were down, we needed the Rams to help us get in the playoffs by beating the Seahawks. That was the year Matthew Stafford couldn't finish the season. But so there is and will always be a connection between the LA Rams and Jared Goff as long as Matthew Stafford is a Ram and Jared Goff is a Lion. All right, so let's take a look at the narrative of this season. What is the narrative this season? Well, the Lions are bad for Vegas. If the Lions win the Super Bowl, it will destroy Vegas. It really would. Last year, Vegas would have lost so much money had the Lions won the Super Bowl. And anytime they do, Vegas is going to take a hit. The Lions will win the Super Bowl when the NFL is ready for them to do so. Okay? Now, of course, a lot of y'all are not going to want to hear this, but the narrative is taking shape. What is the narrative? The Lions should have been in the Super Bowl in 2023. They weren't. We know what happens, right? Now, I'm a believer that you have to overcome the narrative, okay? And in most cases, the Lions have been their own enemy. If you go back to 2023 in the NFC Championship game, you have Dan Campbell not taking the points. You got the Snake calling goofy plays when we should be calling different plays, getting away from the run like he used to do. And my favorite thing in the world, a lack of a pass rush opposite Aiden. You know what? Let me be very clear for the people in the back. The lack of an edge rusher opposite Aiden, because y'all don't seem to get it. So to me, that's what kept us out. The NFL, they wanted to see us in the Super Bowl in 2023. My honest opinion, we would have beat the Chiefs. They did not expect us to blow a 17-point lead. That's just my opinion. I've always believed that, okay? So we have to overcome the narrative, which is what we were unable to do on Sunday. And now every year we have these conversations. Every single year, some of you want to hear it, some of you don't. If you watch wrestling, you're going to watch the NFL. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, I have known this for 10 years. I've known it for 10 years, but I accepted it. Trey Flowers, hands to the face. That's when and every year you can go back in the archives. I've been talking about the NFL narrative. And for the most part, I've been right. Now, keep in mind, again, the narrative is kind of like the gutters at the bowling alley, right? But with that situation, you can't bowl. You can't roll the ball in the gutter. The narrative is to nudge the NFL storylines in a certain direction. And that the narrative taking shape right now is, I think that the NFL is favoring the Detroit Lions. And I know we're still salty about that loss, but think about this. Let's go back to 2023 when we lost to the Dallas Cowboys, when we got robbed of the Taylor Decker touchdown because Dan Skipper didn't report, or he didn't report as eligible, right? That game, and I said this in the video. As a matter of fact, I'll try to find that video and tag it. I said in the video, I was super plump, by the way, that the reason we lost that game is because when we lost that game, that solidified that we were going to be the third seed. Who was the first seed? The first seed was the Philadelphia Eagles, then it was the Dallas Cowboys, then it was us. But the sixth seed was the LA Rams. The Detroit Lions were going to host a game, the first playoff game ever at Ford Field. Who was coming to Ford Field? Matthew Stafford, where the Jared Goff chants originated. So how fitting, what storyline? And not only how fitting would it be that the Detroit Lions beat the LA Rams by 1 point, right? And had their first win ever in the playoffs at Ford Field. Won a playoff game for the first time in 30 plus years. Not only did we win the NFC North for the first time, we won our first playoff game. And I honestly believe that had we done that, had we beat the San Francisco 49ers, we would have had a clean sweep. We would have won our first NFC North title. Because as I'm talking, you're going to be like, yo, this makes sense. First NFC title. We won our first playoff game at Ford Field. We then would have made our first Super Bowl, and I think we would have won that particular season. Who would we have played? The Kansas City Chiefs. Kansas City Chiefs were also the third seed. And the NFL almost saw both third seeds from each conferences go to the Super Bowl. But we blew it. That's what I think happened. The NFL did not expect us to blow a 17-point lead. Okay? Who won the Super Bowl that year? Kansas City Chiefs. Right? I think it was supposed to be the Detroit Lions. It wasn't, because we shot ourselves in the foot. That's why I'm so adamant about an edge rusher, because as you can see from the Kansas City game, we don't get to see Kansas City a lot, but we already know what they are, right? And we know the narrative has been like that for years. This team has been to 7 or 8 consecutive AFC Championship games. 7 or 8. Patrick Mahomes is 3-5 in Super Bowls, which is insane. Insane. He's only been in the league for 8 years, something like that. It's crazy. So the narrative is all about the Chiefs. They're from starting 0-2 to now everybody, they're back. The Chiefs are back, right? Causes for great football. what I think is shaping up is I think that the NFL keeps wanting to push the Detroit Lions. And I think if we do things right, we'll be there. Okay. Is that a pass? Is that a pass rusher? Is it a secondary player? You guys know how I feel about that. I will always value the pass rush over the edge rushers over a secondary player because 2.4 seconds comes from the pass rush. Okay. So I'm going to always side on that side. It depends on what Brad Holmes is able to do, how many injuries we take. Last year, we had a situation where, again, if you look, they've been favoring us for a minute. They've been trying to push us there for a minute, but we just keep getting in our way. We do. Whether it's the snake, whether it's Dan Campbell not taking points, whether it's a lack of a proper defensive end opposite Aiden, we have been shooting ourselves in the foot. And I think what we saw on Sunday night was a prelude to the Super Bowl that's going to happen this year. Now, you guys know how I feel about edge rusher. I said I wasn't going to talk about Super Bowls until we got an edge rusher. But after watching that game, the fact that the Kansas City Chiefs were getting away, I know Jawan Taylor false started, and I didn't even see the game up close because he always false starts. I know there were some holds called or not called on the Kansas City Chiefs. I know it was some plays, some penalties that should have been called that wasn't. Why? Because the NFL did not want to see a 4-2 Kansas City Chiefs team. So I'm going to tell you what I think is going to happen, and I think this is how it's shaping up. And we are here, man, and y'all know how I feel about this. So, all right. So right now, the Indianapolis Colts. Now again, I think that the NFL want to see the Super Bowl, the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl because it's good for them. The Lions are bad for the Lions are bad for Vegas, but they're great for the NFL. You'd be surprised how much love the Lions get when I go places. Right? I went to LA, didn't hear a single Rams house, and I was in Rams country. But everywhere I went, it was a Go Lions every single day. So you have the Colts, the Steelers. Right now, if you go down, the Lions are the 6th seed now. The Chiefs are not even in the playoffs. Okay? If you start 0-2, like the Chiefs did, the Texans did, the Bengals did, your probability to make the playoffs, not let alone win the Super Bowl, make the playoffs is 10%, a little over 10%. The Chiefs have now, after starting 0-2, and they've gone 3-1 in their last 4 games, have a 63% chance to make the playoffs right now. Now, what I think is going to happen is they are going to fight their way up. The Chiefs have been able to beat all of these teams. When it comes down to, they don't get to, but we know why. We know why. From the Bengals to all of these teams, right? They've been able to beat them with the help of the refs. And I think that what's going to happen, you're going to see these teams. Don't forget, the team, the year that the Chiefs won the Super Bowl, they were not the 1st seed. They were not the 1st seed. They were the 3rd seed, and they won the Super Bowl. That's when they beat that was when they had that freezing cold game back in 2023. And it was, freezing, and I think they beat the Dolphins. Then they beat somebody. They went into Buffalo and beat them and then won the Super Bowl, right? So don't forget, the Chiefs don't have to be the number 1 seed to win the Super Bowl. All they have to do is get in the playoffs. And right now, they're not in it. They're not in it. They're going to get in the playoffs, and I think they're going to go to the Super Bowl. Josh Allen has not been able to beat the Chiefs when it matters. He's not going to do it this year either. That's truly believe that. Before these 2 losses, by what I saw on Thursday was so bad. It told me everything that I need to know. Now, again, remember that there are things that the NFL can control and there are things that they can't. The narrative, they want to control the narrative, but teams have to take the narrative out of their hands and do something like we gifted the 49ers the Super Bowl in 2023. We were supposed to be there. But we didn't make it. We shot ourselves in the foot and we wound up, and that is not what they predicted. That's not what they wanted. They wanted because you're talking about feeding families. The Lions in a Super Bowl would feed families. And now after the Brian Branch, I'm not saying Brian Branch did all this stuff because that's the stuff you can't control. But it's shaping up to be a rematch between these 2 teams. Brian Branch will be back, and then Patrick Mahomes' little snarky comments at the end about in between the whistles, blah, blah, blah. So it's coming back. The narrative is taking shape. Now, there's a lot of things that stand in the way of that narrative, but I believe that the Lions, the narrative for the NFL is for the Lions to face the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. And that's without a proper edge rusher opposite Aiden. So let's take a look at this. It's coming from AI, or, you know, the overview. Basically, you type in Google, they give you an AI summary. It says, since the NFL merger in 1970, only 43 teams out of 422 have made the playoffs after starting the season 0-2. The odds of making the playoffs after starting 0-2 have been low, but they have fluctuated slightly over time with changes to the playoff format. And what that means is, remember, we went up from 5 years ago, we had 16 in the playoffs, 6 teams in the playoffs. Now we have 7. Then the next year we went up from 16 games to 17. Says, since 1970, the merger, 43 teams, which is 10.1%, have made the playoffs after an 0-2 start. Since 1990, when the playoff field expanded to 12 teams, that's crazy. 35 of the 288 teams started 0-2, which is 12.2%, have made the playoffs. Since 2020, when the playoff field expanded to 14 teams from the previous 12, 21 teams have started 0-2, but only 2 have made the playoffs. Only 2 have made the playoffs from the time that we expanded to that extra team. And then we also expanded the year after that to an extra game, which probably helps increase the odds overall. It is also notable that only 3 teams have ever won the Super Bowl after starting the season with 2 consecutive losses: the 93 Cowboys, the 2001 Patriots, and the 2007 New York Giants, which ironically are the ones that beat the undefeated New England Patriots. So what do I think is going? What do I think is very clear? I think, and I've been on the fence. Like, sometimes I forget all about it. I'm like, I get so consumed with the NFL and the Lions, and it's easy to get it consumed, but every so often it slaps you in the face. And this was like, oh yeah, Derek, wake up, right? We're back in the narratives. The narratives are starting to take shape now. All of a sudden, Chiefs start 0-2. They now are 3-1 out of the last 4. The Buffalo Bills start 4-0. They have dropped 2 in a row. Philadelphia starts 4-0, 2 in a row. They dropped 2 in a row. So the narrative is starting to take shape. So my prediction is that the NFL wants to see, and I want to be very clear about something. This is not a guarantee. This is the narrative. These are the storylines they want to push. Can you imagine? After the year that the Kansas City Chiefs had last year, you got to understand, Patrick Mahomes is a money-making machine for the NFL. He is if you went to Kansas City, you know what I'm talking about. The parking lot was full. You couldn't get in. You can barely get in. You could barely get out, right? What they want to see is they want to see the Chiefs in the Super Bowl again. And they want to see the Lions in the Super Bowl. I truly believe that. Now, how it'll go when we get there, that's something different. So, again, I love the NFL. I see why people check out, because they have done a miserable job at hiding the narrative since Roger Goodell has taken over. It really started to stick out once he took over. Now there's no hiding it. I used to be able to predict when he went to a game that the game would be good because he was there. So the game would be good. So I know a lot of people are not going to want to hear this. It doesn't change anything how I feel about wrestling. You know what I'm saying? You guys I'm sure you still love John Cena, The Rock. You know, you're watching John Cena's farewell tour, and there'll be other narratives in play. There's smaller storylines as well. You got the Matthew Stafford thing that'll never go away. You've got other storylines, but I don't want you to look for him if you don't want to see him, right? So again, I don't think that the winners are predetermined. I think that the NFL wants to see it. Think about it. It's like a story. This is entertainment. It has to be entertaining. You got revenge. Why do you think remember when Tom Brady was going back into New England for the first time, it was like the revenge game? Or why do you think that they put the Super Bowl champions against another, like they opened the season with the Super Bowl champions? And most importantly, why do you think that there's always a rematch between the Super Bowl champions and the team that they lost to, right? Or the team that they beat? It's always a rematch. There's always a Super Bowl rematch the next year, right? They make it happen. So it's all about storylines. It's all about that. This video was kind of long, and I was like, you know what, Derek, it's time. You went 7 weeks without talking about the NFL narrative because I had to see it. It started to take shape. They did not expect the Chiefs to go 0-2, but when they did, the narrative starts to take shape. So I know a lot of y'all not going to want to hear it. I know a lot of y'all going to be disappointed. It is. I was disappointed when I found out too. But then I said, you know what? I still love my team. Still love my team. It's just like watching wrestling to me. So let me know what you think. Put in the comment section below. And I know a lot of people not going to, you know, if you don't want, well, if you're still here, you know, then maybe you want to see the light. But let me know, what do you think the storylines are this year? What do you think they are? It's crazy. And they're still taking shape as well. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. This channel is made possible by viewers, subscribers, and members just like you. It's because of your support I get to do what I do. You could be anywhere else on YouTube, but you choose to rock with me. You guys are awesome. Take care of yourself and each other. And as always, go Lions.